Welcome back to Dear Diary, the Self-Love Podcast. Today I'm going to be talking to you about mom guilt. So, if you're a mom, let's chat. I guarantee you feel this at least once a day in some shape or form. Am I correct? Probably. I want to start off by saying one of the most important pieces of mom guilt that we forget, I think, and it's one of the most in-your-face realities that there is, and that is that if you are having or experiencing mom guilt, do you know what that means? It means that you are a remarkable, loving, kind, compassionate, hardworking mama. Okay? Just let that sink in for a second. If you are experiencing mom guilt, it means that you're second guessing your choices. It means that you're thinking twice about the things that you say to your children and the actions in which you lead them in. Right? If you didn't care, if you weren't concerned with their well-being and how you're raising them, mom guilt wouldn't be a thing. You just keep going about your day, whether you yelled or not, whether you overreacted or not. It wouldn't affect you if you didn't care. Do you feel that? I mean, really, do you feel that? Like, yeah, okay, I know we all love our kids, but like, do you feel the gravity of that? You care. You want to do better. You want to show up in a way that is loving and kind so that your children thrive and grow up to be amazing humans. That makes you a good mother. So I just wanted to start off with that because it's a fact. And anytime I find myself having mom guilt, I immediately go right to that. And so if you haven't tried that, I suggest you do, because it often changes and shifts your perspective in the moment when you have the mom guilt. And instead of getting down on yourself, it allows you to give yourself grace and kindness and compassion. The same stuff that you want to give to your child, you also need to give to yourself. So, let's talk about this mom guilt. What does it feel like? It feels like, for me, it feels like a disappointment in myself. It feels like I just didn't get it right again. It feels like, God, why isn't this easier? Is it me? Is it him? Am I doing a good job? It feels like doubt. It feels like judgment. I bet other moms don't do this. I should be better. No wonder why he acts the way he does. Look at me, how I react to the way he is. Right? There's so much judgment. There's so many limiting beliefs that are surrounded by the mom guilt. So if just for this one time, I want to take you down a little meditation journey. So if you can and you're not driving or operating heavy machinery, I invite you to just close your eyes and take a deep breath for a second. Just fully landing in this moment, continuing to breathe, and just take yourself back to a time. Maybe it's a most recent time, maybe it's one that stands out in your memory the most. But bring yourself back to a time where you were feeling mom guilt. What did it feel like in your body? What were the actions that followed? What were the actions that led up to the feeling of guilt? What does it feel like to have guilt? Does it feel like your best and most aligned self? No, it probably doesn't. Did you also know that the definition of guilt is the fact of having committed a specified or implied offense or crime? You are not guilty of anything in those moments because you didn't take your kids to the park because it was really hot that day and you just didn't feel like it, or because you yelled because it's 5 o'clock and you're trying to cook dinner and nobody is listening and the house is chaos and you are tired because you're pouring from an empty cup. There is no offense in that. You're human. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay. So I really just want you to breathe in for a moment, still remembering that time when you lost your shit. Or maybe it's a grand picture of staying in a relationship that you don't really know if it's serving you or your child, but you're too scared to leave and break up your family. So you stick around and you constantly wonder if you're making the right decision by being there. What does that feel like? Now I want you to zoom out from whatever particular instance this is that you're thinking of, whatever situation this is. Zoom out and look at the big picture. And give yourself some fucking grace. Are your children loved? Are they cared for? Do they have food on the table? Are you doing your best? Do they know they are loved? Can you give yourself the same amount of grace that you give them? Can you give both of you some more grace and compassion? Can you start recalling the times where you've had mom guilt and zoom out on those times and ask yourself this question? Was I doing too much? Was I pouring from an empty cup? Did I have too many plates in the air? We spread ourselves so thin. And then on top of that, we have guilt for not doing enough. Do you see where the problem lies? The problem isn't in the fact that you're a bad mom. The problem isn't in the fact that you yelled. The problem starts with where you are and how much you make yourself a priority. Because I can tell you firsthand, when I'm having an experience with my son that is, less than ideal, and I notice immediately when I'm coming from a calm, loving, compassionate place, a place of patience. Because I got up a little early and I spent time filling my cup with meditation or journaling or a hot shower or a cup of coffee or a book. The day goes so much smoother. His behaviors often are a reflection of mine. Zoom out When your child is having these behaviors, can you ask yourself a question? How is my behavior? Right? They're like little sponges picking up on our energies and our words and our actions. They see everything we do. So what would happen if you are someone who experiences mom guilt, like on the regular? What would happen if you just gave yourself a little more compassion, a little more grace, and started paying attention to your wants and needs first? Some of you are saying, well, that right there is mom guilt for me. I don't have time to take care of my wants and needs. Yes, you do. Make the time. What if it's a scenario of something that's out of your control, right? Like really wanting to feed your child organic, whole, natural, healthy foods, but you simply can't afford it. And that's out of your control. What can you do? What are small, little steps that you can make towards feeding your child a more nutritious meal? Focus on what you can control and not what you can't. And one of the biggest things that you can control is you in this scenario. When you feel that mom guilt start creeping in, you take a deep breath. You acknowledge that you are a remarkable mother, doing the best that she can with the tools she was given. You give yourself some grace and compassion. You do the same for your children. And just focus on what you can control. One of the next parts that I want to talk about when it comes to mom guilt, and I don't know where everyone lies on this topic, but apologizing to your children. It is one of, in my opinion, the best things that you can do. And I do it on the regular. And it's not that I owe my child an explanation, right, for being short-tempered or for snapping or for saying something out of line. It's that I want him to notice that I'm taking responsibility for my actions, my inactions, my overreactions, so that he can learn to do the same. So in a moment when I'm cooking dinner and I'm stressed and I'm hot because the kitchen is 1,000 degrees and I'm tired and I didn't want to cook dinner to begin with, and then I put food on the table and he's not even going to eat it, and I say, what is wrong with you? I just cooked you a nice dinner. Be grateful. And then that starts a behavior, that sparks a behavior and a reaction from him that's less than ideal, right? In those moments, I have learned to take a deep breath and apologize for what I just said. Apologize for my reaction and explain what I meant instead. Mom just had a really hard day. It's really hot, isn't it? Sometimes I get cranky when I get hot. Do you? Sometimes I get cranky when I'm really hungry. And I really made this dinner with love so that you could eat it and nourish your belly. And when you told me that you didn't want it, I got upset. And I'm sorry that I said what I said. It's not okay. But it's also not okay that you don't eat your dinner, right? It's not validating and accepting their behavior, their actions, or their reactions to your shitty actions. Everybody's gotta take fault for their consequences, right? For their actions. They have to be responsible for their consequences. But just having the conversation, being open. Sometimes that can shift everything. And in that moment, instead of it turning into a huge thing where he runs away and goes into his room and slams the door and I'm pissed and I'll go pour a glass of wine, what you can do instead is have a conversation. Give yourself both some fucking grace. And everything shifts in that moment. We have the hard conversation. I apologize. I give him the floor to apologize for his reaction to my reaction. We have a common ground that we just both want to be seen and heard and respected and appreciated. And 99% of the time, he'll eat the fucking dinner. So, next time you have mom guilt, take a pause. Take a breath. Give yourself some compassion. And zoom out for a second. Acknowledge what just happened. Don't just hide from it. Have a difficult conversation, right? And it depends on how old your child is for them to be able to have conversations with you. But even if they're not old enough to understand, you know what goes miles and miles of impact? I don't even know if that made sense. That definitely didn't make sense. You know what makes the biggest impact? A hug. You know what I need right now? I'm sorry for yelling at you. But you know what I could use? I could use a hug. Could you? It makes a world of difference. So, if you're having mom guilt, number 1, know you're not alone. Number 2, cut that shit out. You're doing the best that you can, and you're a damn good mother. I want you to remember that. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you soon.